I have been waiting for Abzû ever since I first saw it at Sony's E3 2014 conference. As a fan of large vistas and beautiful music, Abzû's oceanic adventure sparked my interest and curiosity just from its short teaser, and I wanted to know more about this mysterious game. Now more than 2 years have gone by since then, and it's finally here for my consumption. And I'm delighted to report that it's a worthy purchase for anyone who is fascinated by its introduction trailer. Admittedly, things weren't looking so good during the opening bits. While the initial reveal of the ocean and its inhabitants was wonderful and exciting, the allure wore off almost instantly once the game forced you into this odd pattern of activities that felt like a really half-hearted attempt to copy Journey. I was feeling really dispirited and went to bed with this heavy heart, worrying that it would be one of my most disappointing games of the year. And as if by chance, the point where I stopped and started back up again the next morning is almost exactly where Abzû starts to really shine. The game starts introducing some surprising elements that I dare not spoil, and there were moments that almost had me on the verge of tears because of how overwhelmingly beautiful and powerful they were. Now, the gameplay is nothing special aside from some surprisingly competent ocean navigation, which is pretty rare these days. But it's the audio-visual presentation that is almost strictly why Abzû works, and is good despite its problems. You can tell from the get-go that people from that game company worked on Abzû. Its art style looks very reminiscent of Flower, and the focus on large-scale scenery and sweeping music reminds one instantly of Journey. Although Sony is banking hard on promoting this game with comparisons to Journey, Abzû reminded me a lot more of Flower. The movement is focused much more on floating in all different directions, and it feels very similar to the narrative structure of that game company's games. In the world of Abzû, the creatures of the deep live together in harmony, and this utopia that Giant Squid has created is nothing short of wonderful. And it's always a treat watching our nameless protagonists interact with the ocean life. But I wish there were more ways to interact with them. Besides an uninteresting meditation feature, the majority of your interactions involve occasionally riding one of the bigger creatures and swimming with smaller groups of fish. That's it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's awesome when it happens, but I wanted more variety. I wish this game had more moments like the jaw-dropping whale dive sequence, and less of these Journey-esque scenes of unlocking doors with your sonar. If you're a fan of visual splendor like I am, Abzû has got you covered and then some. Once the disappointing opening ends, you're treated to some of the most creative, colorful, and sometimes terrifying ocean environments I have ever experienced in a game. What makes it even better is the aforementioned ocean life, and they make the world feel both alive and fantastical. You can clearly see the more than 2 years of work Giant Squid put into getting this game, and to getting the AI and liveliness of the environments just right. The other component of Abzû's beautiful atmosphere is Austin Wintory's score, which is, of course, incredible. He creates an ethereal musical palette, and while it doesn't quite have the dynamism that Journey's music did, it's still a lovely treat for the ears, and I'm going to remember its luscious melodies for years to come. Now, as I've mentioned previously, I recommend Abzû just for the audio-visual presentation, but I have to mention the problems I had with it too. Like a lot of clones, and to be fair, this does try to be a Journey clone, it lacks that special something, that je ne sais quoi, that made the original so memorable. For one thing, it lacks the emotional connection to the adventure, which is kind of a killer. Abzû attempts to get you to care for its certain quote-unquote characters, but they don't even come close to matching how you feel about your player-controlled traveling companions and journey. It's a rather lonely adventure, and while that's fine in multiple games, it puts a slight damper on the wonder of Abzû when it feels so emotionally vacant and distant in some areas. You want, at some points, to experience this adventure with someone else, but all you're stuck with is the occasional blinking drone and some other companions that join you later on in the game. The journey itself is also not as compelling as Journey's was. In Journey, you had a clear goal, brilliantly shown to you just through visual storytelling. It was simple. Get to the top of this glowing mountain. Right. Got it. Its simple premise also hit a deep, melancholic, and joyful metaphor and examination of life and death itself. What is the goal of Abzû's lead? You got me. Fuck if I know. I didn't know when I first started out, and that bothered me during the opening moments. Without showing me my character's objective in a clever way, I didn't really feel anything during the opening aside from, of course, the beginning allure, and that gave way to just confusion and emptiness. Even when I realized what my character's objective was, which is get to the heart of the ocean, I still didn't find it anywhere near as interesting as Journey's. It's like Abzû tries to obtain a certain thematic depth, and it doesn't really have any, despite its grand visual claims that it does. It's a missed opportunity. But Abzû is a strange beast. It's hollow where it should count in order to turn it into something great. But on the other hand, the visuals and music are so incredible and so great, and I highly recommend the game just for that, even with its $19.99 price point, because when you're running around, or in this case swimming around, in these stunning environments, listening to Winnery's just angelic score, the thought that you paid $19.99 for this is just gonna fade off into the distance. You're not gonna care. So, God, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say this. Its audio-visual presentation makes Abzû worth the plunge. There, I said it. The plunge. I made a pun. Happy? No, not really. I'm not happy with myself.